This is Beach Brew Cast number 4 on September 29th, actually the 28th. I'm shooting this a day early, 2025. Wow, this has been a long time in the making. I'm not going to go way back in history, but just this office build out to be able to do this, a retirement, just to start producing some content. It has been years since I worked for myself. Used to run a magazine and was heavy into publishing and doing cool articles. And with work and kids, that kind of went on the back burner. Anyway, about maybe 2 years ago, I started planning for this eventuality, if you'll call it that. I didn't know really what I was going to do, but with the support of my wife, I built an office, bought all new equipment, stocked it, spent what I would consider a sizable amount of money, and did not know where this was going to go. Initially, prior to retiring, I ran some simple tests, like just to see if I was able to do a podcast. I shot some stuff outside. That's some early podcasts with somebody named Adrian from the Pit Martial Arts in Arroyo Grande. Go check them out. Pretty cool place. But it didn't work out well outside. And then I decided we're going to have to move it into this office. And this is where it is now. It's built into a podcast studio. The problem was, or is, you see people, big podcasters and people that do interviews online, there's a definite art to that. And it seems that they have a lot of practice. And when I started editing, it was taking hours and hours to edit the footage. And quite frankly, I don't think it was that great. It was on me. So the guests were great, but the problem was I didn't format the questions correctly. Maybe not that engaging of a speaker, whatever it was, whatever I put into the recipe that makes a final show, I did not have it. I also have some health issues. I'm not going to go into those. But being able to schedule a podcast guest all the time really put a damper on that. I couldn't figure out exactly how I could do that and juggle everything else I got going on in my life. So I pushed the podcast, vlogcast, whatever you call it, on to the back burner and tried to focus on some other projects. In the meantime, I decided that I would turn the Beach Brew Cast into more of some like informational stuff. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I had this channel up, I had all this stuff, but I don't necessarily know what people wanted to listen to. So I started adding some little clips on TikTok and Instagram just to see what formats worked, what length works. And anyway, had all that figured out, got it dialed in. And then I had this crazy idea that I don't really need to have a guest all the time. But at this point, I just want to talk about stuff. Sometimes you just want to ask some questions about things that are on your mind and maybe you don't have answers to. Maybe there's people out there that can provide answers. And that brings me to my first little topic that I want to talk about today. Advice. I tend to not want to cause controversy or anything like that. Life is too short and there's lots of people out there causing controversy. I'm sure that at some point, something I say will offend somebody, and that is just life. That is not my intention. It's more just like questions that I have. I have my own input, and as they say, everybody has an opinion, and they all stink. Or how does it go? Opinions are like buttholes. Everyone has one and they all stink. That being said, asking for advice, I guess that would be topic number one. And I think I'm going to format this by going through things that have happened through my week, questions that I have that I've just been jotting down. I will keep names out, just things that I observe. And the first topic is asking for advice. Over the course of my life, some 53, almost 54 years in October, I have developed a skill set that has benefited me extremely well. I'm sure just like you have your own skill sets and your own abilities. My skill set has allowed me to be able to offer advice kind of in the marketing, design, social media area. I've done that kind of stuff for a long time. I'm definitely not a genius in it. I would assume that there are people out there that have way more knowledge than me. And a lot of the advice I give when I'm asked isn't anything revolutionary. It's stuff that I found online, stuff that's worked for me. And I have a tendency to see patterns in stuff that some find beneficial. Sadly, sometimes the stuff doesn't work out for me. I can see errors with other people's stuff where I can't see it with my own. It's strange, but it happens. So I am I think the word is averse to giving advice as I get older. When I was younger, I would give advice even if it wasn't asked. And over the course of time, I realized that handing advice out doesn't usually go very well when it's not asked for. Most people get offended with unsolicited advice. What I found out is as I get older is that even when people are asking you for advice, they also will get upset at your answer. I call people like that advice shoppers. They will reach out to you, they will ask you for advice, you will give them what you consider sound advice, and if they don't like the answer, they will go elsewhere. They already have an idea of the answer that they want. They've made it up in their head, and they just keep shopping until somebody gives them the answer that they want to hear. But here's the problem. If the decision goes bad, they'll of course blame the person that gave them the bad advice. And if it goes well, they'll never give the person credit. So giving advice to someone oftentimes doesn't benefit you in any way. It could really only go sideways. I've never really seen too much benefit to it unless it's like something obvious where somebody's going to harm themselves. So recently, since I retired, I've received several requests to give advice on marketing, design, things of that nature. And I've been prefacing each one of those meetings with kind of like a disclaimer that I'm going to speak my mind. They probably won't want to hear what I have to say. And as long as it doesn't ruin our relationship, we could move forward with that. I also stipulate that I'm not in the business to do any work for them. A long time ago when I ran my business, I would do consulting. I would charge for the entire service for design work and everything else that went into that. I'm not looking to do that as a side business or a gig. I don't want the stress involved with that. I'm in a place in my life where I just want to create my own stuff. Hopefully it helps some people, and I have a little bit of fun. I have a little content on the side, a little another channel where I create foam props for holidays and stuff. That's fun. That's my creative outlet. Like I said, I have what I would consider a decent amount of medical issues and spend what I would say an obscene amount of time at the VA dealing with some of those issues. So when I have time juggling between not feeling well and kids' sports and everything involved with life, I have time for this podcast and that little side project. That's all I'm really focusing on. I don't really have a lot of time to invest in these other projects where I'm charging for the consulting and the video production and the marketing and all of that stuff. While it can be lucrative, it's stressful. It's a lot of work. But anyway, so I've been going into those solicited advice giving with those stipulations in advance. And I've also found that even when you give those stipulations, the tendency is still to not be happy with what you hear. I've had occasion where even when I laid out those kind of ground rules, the person seemed a little bit irritated with my answer because I didn't give the answer that they wanted to hear. I will say this, that if you are seeking advice and you're really seeking it, like you really value somebody's opinion because you feel that they can help you in some way, then first of all, do your research before you just ask anybody, okay? Little side note here. If somebody's broke and poor and has had 10 bankruptcies, while they might have some good advice about how not to end up that way, that person's probably not the greatest financial advisor to help you make a bunch of money. Okay, you probably wouldn't seek them for advice. If somebody's had probably 10 or 15 divorces, you probably don't want to seek that person out for relationship advice. And I could go on and on. If someone is extremely unhealthy, they have a lot of medical issues caused by food and other things, they've lived poorly, you might not want to ask that person for fitness advice. Okay, and that's just a little side note. So before you solicit advice, find out, do a little research from the person or the company that you're wanting the advice. And if you determine they're reputable, then listen to what they have to say. And if you don't like it, you don't have to adopt it, but don't get mad at them because you're the one that asked for that. And then here's the other thing. If you reach out and you pay a consultant, or you come to somebody that's a professional in whatever area you're seeking advice, and you ask them for advice and they give you sound advice or what you feel is sound advice, listen to it. If you're going to take their advice, you need to do it to 100%, okay? I'll give you an example. If you ask me something about social media and I give you 10 points on exactly what I feel is going to help your business, but you only adopt 30% of them and you discount the other portion, more than likely the advice I give isn't going to work because I've packaged it up as a whole. You only take 30% of it when it fails, and it probably will. Of course, I'm going to get blamed for that, or the person giving advice is going to get blamed for that. If you went into the doctor with some ailment, you had heart problems, whatever it was, and the doctor gave you advice and said, you need to do X, Y, and Z. If a month later you ended up in the hospital and the doctor said, did you follow my directions? And you said, no, not really. I only did X. Is it the doctor's fault that you didn't follow the rest of the instructions? No. Of course, the doctor isn't always right. They're not perfect, just like the person giving advice is not perfect. Things happen and things could change. But, that's my take on that in a nutshell. If you're going to ask for advice, make sure the person or the company you're getting advice is reputable. And if you're going to take the advice, then you should do it fully, not just pick and choose what you want, because the results may not be what you want. Okay. I am on to topic number 2, the VA and using My Health VA. This is a touchy subject for me because I use the VA health services a lot. I have recently spoken to a few veterans, and the overall picture I get is the veterans are very frustrated that they're not getting the service that they want at the VA. And that is totally understandable. If you have used the VA, it can be hit or miss. Some people will tell you they love their provider. Other places, it's horrible. Little side note, clean your restrooms. I think it's West LA. Oh my gosh. They're so nasty. I think it's West LA. I had to go down there last year because a fiasco. I'll tell you that story here in a second. But the bathrooms were horrendous. Anyway, side notes on that little story. Let me tell you what happened. And I'll bring it all back around so you understand what I'm saying. One of the things that I suffer from is migraines. An obscene amount of migraines, and I'm on a lot of meds for those migraines. So anyway, I was at a local facility. I don't know the exact time frame. It's maybe a year ago. And I was pretty frustrated with the lack of answers I was getting from my doctors. Now, I had been seeing a community care specialist through the VA in Santa Barbara for quite some time. And that doctor, the neurologist, was pretty great. She ran just so many tests to find out the causes of certain things. And there was never really an answer. So she had suggested maybe I could go out and use, I don't know, like Stanford or some specialist that wasn't available to the VA or wasn't like tied in with the VA. So I decided that I would go to my primary care at my local VA and I would ask them, if possible, if they could put in a referral to like Stanford or something like that. I didn't even know if it was possible through the VA insurance. I remember going in and having a talk with that doctor. Now, you have to understand the VA is a giant juggernaut messiness, and not all the systems seem to be tied together. It's wonky, and it's just like this big behemoth. You kind of get lost. It's like they just don't seem to share information, and it's just not a great system. But the people there try. So I asked this doctor if she could put in a referral, and I don't know exactly what caused this to happen, but I was pretty explicit, and I'm pretty explicit with most of my doctors, even community care. please don't put any major changes in for meds or anything, because anytime you do something like that, like you put in for something new or something, it just cancels it all out and things go wonky. Anyway, she puts in whatever she puts in into the system. All right. I'm scheduled for a new appointment shortly after to see my neurologist in Santa Barbara, but I can't because I guess I lost my referral. They renew it every so often. So I call up and community cares, we have no idea. You're not referred to them anymore. I'm like, what are you talking about? They said, yeah, you don't see that doctor anymore. I'm like, okay, how do I get my medication if I don't have the referral? So I think they kind of wrote an extension on it. I contact the local VA center that I've been going through for years, and they said to get to go see the community care neurologist again, you have to go through your primary care who has to authorize it again. I'm like, okay. So I contact the local VA clinic to set up an appointment so that I could get the referral again to the neurologist. And I'm told, you're not in the system. I said, what are you talking about? I've been going to you for years. They said, you have to be seen in our office once a year or something like that. And because you weren't seen in our office, you're no longer in the VA healthcare system. I said, that's straight wackiness, seeing that you authorize the medicine from the VA and the VA sends me monthly medicine in a dry ice package once a month to my house. I said, sorry, you're going to have to get re-enrolled in VA healthcare, get set up with a new primary care, and then they can run you through the neurology. I'm like, what? Okay, I've been using the VA for many years. So anyway, I go to set up an appointment and they won't set me up an appointment at the local VA. They tell me that my appointment has to be in Los Angeles at the West LA. I believe it's West LA, not Sepulveda. I can't figure out why. So, not feeling well, still make the trip to Los Angeles, 3.5 hour drive, I think 3.5 or 4. And when I get down there, I have to do intake into the neurology department to where the neurologist is interviewing me like I was a first-time patient, had never been seen before for migraines, even though I'm still receiving meds for migraines from the same people. Anyway, that meeting was strange. They did all the tests and then partway through realized that, wait, there must be a mix-up. Why are you down in LA? So I told them the fiasco. They sent the local community VA in my area a note, and then I got rescheduled with a new primary care at the local VA. And this is the crazy part. On my next appointment, when I walked through the VA, they welcomed me to the VA for the first time and wondered if I liked my move from Los Angeles because somebody in the system had changed my address to Los Angeles. So that's what you're dealing with. It's this big, giant, I don't even know what you want to call it, just a big pot of spaghetti that's all tied together and it's all separate and stuff just gets messed up. I can tell you story after story about stuff like that, which leads me back into this. I'm going to tell you how to navigate that mess. Recently, I was speaking with a veteran, and the veteran was complaining about healthcare. I had given some advice, solicited. They had asked for advice. And I told them to do ABC. And when they went to Dr. basically refused to let them go see a specialist. And then didn't even put that in their record. The conversation with the veteran didn't even happen. So when the veteran came back and said they just denied that I could even see a specialist, I told them of this little trick, and hopefully it helps somebody else out there. First of all, you need to set up an account on the va.gov. But anyway, once you log into va.gov, you can access the My Health VA. That portal gives you medical records that the VA has kept, all of your doctor's notes, and tons of other information. You can set appointments, you can see new appointments, all kinds of stuff like that. But here's the cool feature. Inside there is a way for you to chat with the healthcare teams that are providing health to you. Your doctor, care teams, whatever other specialist you're seeing. The best part about that little chat box is that chat box is a permanent record. Every interaction you do gets dropped into your medical records. Okay? From what I understand, monitor that and make sure that the questions are being answered. So the way that I use that is I use that as a record keeping system. So just like I do, I told the veteran, go back in to the chat feature and send your primary care a note regarding your recent visit. And tell them, I saw you on this date. I wanted to see a specialist and you denied me. I feel that I need to see a specialist for whatever reasons, X, Y, Z. Lo and behold, I think a day or two later, the veteran was contacted and the wheels started turning and they got to see a specialist. And the reason is because now there's a record of it. If it isn't written down or you just make a phone call, it just didn't happen. So that's my advice to you. That is unsolicited advice, but hopefully it helps somebody. Go use that chat feature. It keeps records and it's great. You can also use the blue button in there, download your medical records, and you can see those past interactions where you chatted. I'm using this Elgato thing, and it's a teleprompter. It allows me to put stuff on the screen. I'm actually looking right through the teleprompter now. It's pretty cool. Allows me to chat and kind of read what I'm going to talk about next. If you are a veteran and you think only this veteran from this war did this, only those people are allowed to get services from the VA, you're wrong. You're just wrong. And sometimes you come off as an a-hole. No one gave you that right. Any of these veterans, and I'm talking any of them, that agreed to give up their life, if need be, for their country, I don't really care if they made it to the first part of training and they were walking off a bus and they fell off the bus and they broke something. The agreement that they had with the government was this: I went in here fine and I will give you my best up into my life if I have to. And the agreement is that you will take care of me and help me if anything happens during that service. And so, because of bad interactions, some of the veterans that maybe didn't do 6 tours during World War II and are missing a limb feel less than because they're made to feel that way by those veterans. And that's just sad. That to me is sad. Now, that is totally separate that than people out there trying to scam the system and get something that they didn't deserve. Those guys deserve everything they got coming to them, but it's not your place, other veterans, to be gatekeepers for that. It's just not cool. Don't expand what you did. If you went in the military, I don't know, you did paperwork, you never went anywhere else, that's good enough. You didn't need to be Commando Joe jumping out of planes and taking out, I don't know, 40, 50 people. Your service is just as honorable as the other guys, okay? And I guess I'm talking to both groups. Don't be a dick and try to discount people's stuff, because then it keeps them from seeking services they deserved and they earned. And also, don't expand and tell people about stuff that you didn't do, because it just discounts your own service. Don't be something or say something that you're not, because you're probably going to get found out and you never know who you're talking to. I am a Christian and I have a lot of questions about the Bible. I'm doing a quick search here on Google, the number of denominations in Christianity. So there's a place called Bible Analysis, and it says there's 50,000 denominations globally. 50,000. So a denomination is basically a distinct family of churches with shared beliefs and histories. All right, so there's 50,000 denominations of Christianity worldwide. That means that, and this is my take on it, I'm not an expert, I'm not a pastor. Here's my take on this. There's 50,000 denominations of Christianity worldwide. That means that in each one of those denominations, there's multiple churches, maybe one church, and then in each one of those, there's so many members. Okay. That's a lot of people that have a different take on the Bible. They're all reading the same Bible, maybe different versions, the way that it's been translated, but it's basically all the same. But you'll have this group over here interprets it one way, and they totally believe it. And then you got another group that totally believes the way they read it, and their way is correct. And then you got another group that reads the scripture and says it's their way. Ultimately, Christianity is that you cannot earn your way into heaven, and the only way to get to heaven is to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and put your trust in him. But each one of these different groups kind of diverges on all the little rules and certain things. And I was in a discussion with somebody recently who gave me advice about the Bible, unsolicited, but gave me their take on it. And I didn't necessarily agree with that take. I have my own feeling about how that's interpreted. And this person was steadfast that their way was right. And how do you determine which way is right? There are groups in those denominations. I don't know what it's called. I think there's one down in southern U.S. that, I might get this wrong, the Appalachian phenomenon of snake handling doesn't align with a specific denomination. They're not required. Anyway, I was just looking at a picture of some dude in a blue vest that's holding a snake. It says some church in Middlesboro is holding a rattlesnake during a church service. So anyway, it's sidetrack. This group believes so strongly in their interpretation of the Bible that they're willing to hold a snake. Okay? I personally think that's straight up wacky. I don't interpret the Bible at all like that. I forget what the scripture is, but it's don't test your God. I think Jesus said that when tested by Satan or tempted. And so that's my take on it. So I guess what I'm saying is, how are you so steadfast in your way that you are like, I am absolutely right, when you have groups that are willing to hold snakes? They believe so strongly that they can have a snake bite them. And then there's other groups that do other stuff. If I offended anybody with any of this stuff, I apologize in advance. I'm going to be taking clips off of this. I think I've rambled for a good hour, non-coherent stuff. This is my 4th actual podcast. But is it a vlogcast, podcast? I don't know. I'm going to cut this stuff up. I'm going to put little clips on Instagram, TikTok, and on YouTube. But I think the main full podcast is going to go on Spotify. I'm going to try to maybe do one of these full vlogcasts a week. If I eventually get to having a guest, that would be great. And you won't be so bored. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And take everything that I say with a grain of salt, because I am definitely not perfect. I apologize again if I offended anybody. And you have a good time with whatever you're doing. And God bless.